Scandal whispered through Constantinople's gilded halls, where a former actress's secrets threatened an empire's throne. Welcome to How Did Theodora's Scandalous Past Shape Her Marriage to Justinian? A tale of ambition, love, and power that reshaped history. The city of Constantinople in the early 6th century was a dazzling crossroads of empires, where marble palaces gleamed under the Mediterranean sun and the hippodrome roared with the cheers of chariot races. It was a place where ambition could lift a nobody to greatness or cast them into oblivion. Into this vibrant, treacherous world stepped Theodora, a woman whose name would echo through history, not just for her beauty, but for her iron will and scandalous origins. To understand how her past shaped her marriage to Justinian, the man who would become one of Rome's greatest emperors, we must first uncover the life she led before the crown. This is the story of a girl born in the dust of the circus, who clawed her way to the heart of an empire. Theodora's early years were far from the opulence of the imperial court. Born around 500 CE, she was the daughter of a bear-keeper named Acacius, who worked in the hippodrome, Constantinople's massive arena for entertainment and spectacle. The hippodrome wasn't just a racetrack, it was the pulsing heart of the city, where crowds gathered to watch chariot races, acrobats, and theatrical performances. Theodora's father died when she was young, leaving her mother, a struggling actress, to raise 3 daughters in poverty. The family's survival depended on the stage, and Theodora, along with her sisters, was thrust into the world of performance as a child. By her teens, she was a fixture in the hippodrome's shows, known for her beauty, wit, and daring. Life as an actress in Byzantine society was not glamorous, it was scandalous. Performers were often seen as little better than courtesans, their lives steeped in social stigma. Theodora's roles weren't limited to innocent plays. She performed in risque acts that pushed the boundaries of decency, including an infamous routine where she appeared nearly nude, covered only by a few strategically placed props. These performances, while popular with rowdy crowds, branded her as a woman of questionable morals in the eyes of the elite. Yet Theodora was no mere victim of circumstance. She was sharp, ambitious, and quick to learn the ways of power. She navigated the hippodrome's cutthroat world, charming patrons and building connections, even as whispers of her scandalous acts followed her like shadows. At a young age, she caught the eye of a wealthy official named Justinian, who offered her a way out of the hippodrome's grind. He took her as his mistress and brought her to North Africa, where he served as a governor. For a time, she lived a life of relative comfort, far from the jeering crowds. But Justinian was not a kind man. He abandoned her when their relationship soured, leaving Theodora stranded in a foreign land. Penniless and alone, she faced a choice: return to the stage or forge a new path. This moment of betrayal was a turning point, hardening her resolve and sharpening her cunning. She traveled through Alexandria, a hub of intellectual and religious life, where she encountered new ideas, including the Monophysite sect Christian, which would later influence her deeply. Back in Constantinople, Theodora reinvented herself. No longer just a performer, she took up work as a wool spinner, a humble trade that allowed her to blend into the city's working class while quietly rebuilding her network. It was here, in the bustling streets of the capital, that she met Justinian, a rising star in the imperial court. Justinian, nephew of Emperor Justin I, was a man of ambition, with a vision to restore the Roman Empire's glory. He was drawn to Theodora's beauty, but more so to her intellect and resilience. Their early relationship was a delicate dance, as Theodora navigated the court's judgment and Justinian worked to change the laws that barred their union. Her time in the hippodrome had taught her to read people, to charm and manipulate, skills that would prove invaluable in the imperial palace. But whispers of her past, her provocative performances, her time as a mistress, followed her, threatening to derail their ambitions. Could a woman born in scandal rise to share a throne? As we leave Theodora's early life, we see a woman shaped by hardship and reinvention, her past a mix of shame and strength. The skills she honed in the shadows of the hippodrome, resilience, cunning, and charisma, would soon clash with the rigid world of the Byzantine court. Her story with Justinian is just beginning, but the echoes of her scandalous origins will ripple through their marriage, setting the stage for a partnership that would change an empire.
The streets of Constantinople shimmered with the heat of ambition as Theodora, no longer the hippodrome's daring performer, stepped into the orbit of Justinian, a man destined to shape an empire. The year was around 520 CE, and the Byzantine capital buzzed with political intrigue, where every smile hid a scheme and every alliance carried a price. Theodora, now in her early 20s, had returned from her trials in North Africa and Alexandria, her beauty undimmed but her spirit forged in adversity. She was no stranger to survival, having spun wool to make ends meet while quietly weaving a network of allies. Justinian, a rising figure in Emperor Justin's court, was drawn to her like a moth to a flame, but their love faced a formidable barrier: her scandalous past as an actress, a stain that Byzantine society refused to forgive. Justinian, a man of sharp intellect and boundless ambition, served as a trusted advisor to his uncle, Emperor Justin I, a former peasant who had risen to the throne through military grit. Justinian's dreams were grand: to restore the Roman Empire's lost glory from the Tiber to the Euphrates. But his heart was captured by Theodora, whom he met through a mutual acquaintance in Constantinople's bustling social circles. She was no longer the flamboyant performer, but a poised woman, her wit as sharp as her gaze. Their conversations, held in quiet corners of the city's taverns or garden courtyards, revealed a shared hunger for power. Theodora understood the streets and the people, while Justinian navigated the labyrinth of court politics. Together they were a force, but their union was forbidden by law. In Byzantine society, actresses were barred from marrying men of senatorial rank, a rule rooted in the empire's rigid class system. Theodora's past performances, whispered about in scandalized tones, made her an outcast among the elite. Senators' wives clutched their pearls at the thought of her in the palace, and Justinian's family, particularly Empress Euphemia, Justin's wife, viewed her as a threat to their legacy. Euphemia, a former slave herself, ironically clung to her newfound respectability and scorned Theodora's origins. Justinian, undeterred, began a quiet campaign to change the law, working through legal scholars and loyal allies in the court. He argued that love and merit should outweigh outdated traditions, but the court's resistance was fierce. Theodora, meanwhile, proved her worth beyond her charm. She had learned the art of influence in the hippodrome, where a well-timed smile could win a patron's favor. Now, she used those skills to navigate Constantinople's social web, befriending key figures like senators' aides and religious leaders. Her time in Alexandria had exposed her to the Monophysite Christians, a sect at odds with the empire's Orthodox faith, and she began cultivating ties with their leaders, sensing their growing influence. These connections gave her a foothold in the city's undercurrents, where power often lay hidden. She advised Justinian on the mood of the people, warning him of unrest brewing in the hippodrome's factions, the blues and greens, rival groups who could sway public opinion or spark riots. Their relationship deepened in secret meetings, often in the shadow of the Hagia Sophia, then a modest church under construction. Justinian shared his vision of a unified empire, while Theodora spoke of justice for the overlooked, women, the poor, those like her who society shunned. Their bond was not just romantic, but intellectual, a partnership of equals in a world that demanded hierarchy. Yet the whispers of her past grew louder, spread by courtiers eager to undermine Justinian's rising star. One evening, a rival official confronted Theodora at a banquet, sneering about her stage antics. She met his gaze with icy calm, replying, "A stage taught me truth, while your court hides behind lies." Justinian, overhearing, admired her defiance, but the incident underscored the battle they faced. To secure their future, Justinian drafted a new law, proposing that reformed actresses could marry nobles if they abandoned their past. He presented it to Justin, who, swayed by his nephew's passion and Theodora's quiet lobbying, agreed to consider it. But Euphemia's opposition remained a hurdle, her influence on Justin a constant threat. Theodora, ever resourceful, began discreetly meeting with palace staff, winning their loyalty with kindness and small gifts. She knew the servants heard everything, and their goodwill could tip the scales. One maid, loyal to Theodora, overheard Euphemia plotting to discredit her, prompting Theodora to counter with a well-placed rumor about a rival's finances, diverting attention. As their campaign gained traction, Justinian and Theodora faced a personal test. A riot in the Hippodrome, sparked by the blues and greens, turned deadly, and Justinian relied on Theodora's insight to calm the factions. She suggested he publicly honor a popular charioteer, uniting the crowds in celebration rather than violence. The move worked, boosting Justinian's reputation and proving Theodora's value as a strategist. But the victory was bittersweet. Euphemia's health began to fail, and with it her grip on the court weakened, opening a window for their marriage. Theodora, however, felt the weight of her past more keenly, knowing every step toward the throne brought new enemies. The stage is set for a pivotal moment, as Theodora and Justinian's love battles the empire's traditions. Her scandalous origins, once a shackle, are becoming a weapon, honed by years of survival. The court's whispers grow louder, but so does Theodora's resolve as they edge closer to defying the odds. What lies ahead is a test of power, loyalty, and the strength of their bond as they face the empire's ultimate judgment.
Constantinople's marble palaces glowed under the setting sun as Theodora and Justinian stood on the brink of defying an empire's laws. With Empress Euphemia's health fading, the court's resistance to their marriage weakened. But Theodora's scandalous past as an actress fueled relentless gossip. Justinian, now a key figure in Emperor Justin's administration, pushed for a new law to allow their union, drafting it with scholars to permit reformed actresses to wed nobles. Theodora worked behind the scenes, charming senators and clergy, her monophysite ties gaining her allies among the empire's religious fringes. Yet a rival senator, Hypatius, spread rumors of her old performances, threatening to derail their plans. Theodora countered by exposing Hypatius's own financial misdeeds, her street-honed cunning silencing him. Justinian's law passed in 523 CE, and they married in a quiet ceremony. But the court's elite still sneered, calling Theodora unfit. She faced them with steely grace, her past a badge of resilience. Their marriage solidified a partnership, with Theodora advising Justinian on policy, from tax reforms to calming hippodrome riots. Her insight into the city's pulse proved vital, but new challenges loomed as Justinian eyed the throne, and Theodora's enemies plotted to use her history against her. The empire watched, waiting to see if a former actress could rise to empress, her scandalous origins shaping their union into a force of defiance and ambition.
The golden domes of Constantinople glittered under the Mediterranean sun as Theodora and Justinian, newly wed in 523 CE, stepped into a world of opportunity and peril. Their marriage, a triumph over Byzantine law and societal scorn, had cemented their partnership, but Theodora's past as an actress cast a long shadow over their ambitions. Justinian, now a leading figure in Emperor Justin's court, was poised to inherit the throne, his vision of a restored Roman Empire burning brightly. Theodora, with her sharp mind and street-honed instincts, was no mere consort. She was his advisor, his confidant, and his shield against a court teeming with enemies. Yet her scandalous origins fueled whispers that threatened their rise, and the couple faced a new challenge, proving their union could withstand the weight of power and prejudice. The imperial palace, a labyrinth of marble corridors and whispered plots, was a far cry from the hippodrome where Theodora once performed. Here, senators in silk robes and bishops in jeweled vestments eyed her with suspicion, their murmurs of actress and courtesan barely veiled. Justinian, as Magister Militum and heir apparent, relied on Theodora to navigate this treacherous terrain. She moved with calculated grace, hosting dinners for key allies and charming reluctant nobles with her wit. Her Monophysite connections, forged in Alexandria, proved invaluable. She secured the loyalty of religious leaders who swayed public opinion, countering the Orthodox clergy who despised her. One evening, at a lavish banquet, a bishop named Severus, a Monophysite, praised her compassion for the poor, earning her grudging respect from some courtiers. But not all were swayed. A powerful noble, John the Cappadocian, saw Theodora as a liability to Justinian's ambitions. John, a cunning administrator with designs on influence, spread tales of her provocative past, claiming she'd corrupt the throne. At a council meeting, he openly questioned her presence, sneering, "Can an empress rise from the stage?" Theodora, seated beside Justinian, responded with icy precision, "A stage taught me to see through masks, unlike this court." The room fell silent, and Justinian's proud smile signaled their unity. Behind the scenes, Theodora retaliated, leaking evidence of John's tax skimming to his rivals, weakening his position. Her years in the hippodrome had taught her to strike swiftly and silently, a skill now honed in the palace. Their partnership thrived on mutual reliance. Justinian, drafting laws to strengthen the empire, sought Theodora's counsel on their impact. She urged him to protect the vulnerable, women, orphans, and the poor, drawing from her own struggles. One law, inspired by her, reformed protections for women in divorce, earning her admiration among the city's lower classes. In the hippodrome, the blues and greens, ever volatile factions, began chanting her name during races, a sign of her growing influence. But this popularity alarmed the elite, who saw her as a threat to their control. A plot emerged, led by a senator named Anastasius, to discredit her by reviving old scandals, including forged documents alleging her continued ties to unsavory figures from her acting days. Theodora, ever vigilant, uncovered the plot through her network of palace servants, who overheard Anastasius's plans. She confronted him at a private meeting, presenting the forged documents and threatening to expose his own dealings with corrupt merchants. "You mistake my past for weakness," she told him, her voice low but fierce. Anastasius backed down, but the incident underscored the constant battle she faced. Justinian, meanwhile, prepared for his uncle's failing health, knowing the throne was near. He relied on Theodora to maintain stability, tasking her with managing the hippodrome factions to prevent riots. During a tense race, when the Greens accused the Blues of cheating, Theodora arranged for a public festival to unite them, showcasing her knack for diffusing chaos. Their marriage, though strong, was not without strain. Justinian's long hours in council left Theodora to face the court's hostility alone, and she confided in him late one night, under the flickering light of oil lamps, about her fear of being his downfall. "Your enemies see me as a stain," she whispered. Justinian took her hand, his voice firm. "You are my strength, Theodora. Let them whisper." Their bond, forged in defiance, grew deeper, but the court's resentment simmered. A new threat loomed as Emperor Justin's health worsened, and rumors spread of a rival claimant to the throne, backed by those who saw Theodora's past as a weapon to block Justinian's ascension. As Theodora and Justinian stood on the edge of imperial power, her scandalous origins shaped their marriage into a partnership of resilience and strategy. The court's disdain only fueled her determination, her past a constant reminder of the stakes. With the throne within reach, their love faced its greatest test yet, as enemies gathered to challenge their claim. The stage is set for the final act, where Theodora's history will either crown her or cast her down, as Constantinople holds its breath.
The air in Constantinople crackled with anticipation, as Theodora and Justinian stood on the threshold of imperial power. It was 527 CE, and Emperor Justin's death had left the throne vacant, with Justinian poised to claim it. Theodora, once a scandal-stained actress, now stood as his partner, her past a battleground that shaped their marriage into a fortress of loyalty and cunning. The Byzantine court, a nest of ambition and betrayal, watched with bated breath, some hoping for their triumph, others plotting their fall. Her scandalous origins, her days in the Hippodrome's risque performances, her time as a mistress, had been weaponized by enemies, but Theodora turned those shadows into strength. As Justinian prepared to ascend, the full impact of her past on their union would be revealed, sealing their legacy as one of history's most formidable partnerships. Justinian's coronation was set in the Hagia Sophia, now a grand cathedral under construction, its dome a symbol of his ambition to restore Rome's glory. Theodora, to be crowned Augusta, faced a storm of opposition. Nobles like John the Cappadocian and Anastasius, who had tried to sabotage her, rallied a faction to challenge Justinian's claim, arguing that Theodora's low birth disqualified her. They spread lurid tales of her performances, claiming she'd disgraced the empire. Theodora, undaunted, used her network of allies, Monophysite clergy, Hippodrome loyalists, and palace servants to counter their moves. She uncovered a plot by Anastasius to bribe officials into supporting a rival, Belisarius, a young general. Theodora confronted Anastasius in the palace, her voice sharp as a blade. "You weave lies, but my truth cuts deeper." She presented evidence of his bribes, forcing him to flee the city. Her past as an actress, once a mark of shame, became her greatest asset. The skills she honed in the Hippodrome, reading crowds, manipulating perceptions, allowed her to sway public opinion. When the blues and greens threatened another riot over tax increases, Theodora orchestrated a public address where Justinian promised reforms, her words shaping his speech to resonate with the masses. The crowd cheered, chanting "Theodora Augusta," a title not yet official, but already hers in their hearts. Her ability to bridge the elite and the commoners, learned from years of navigating society's fringes, made her indispensable to Justinian. He confided in her nightly, their lamplit discussions forging laws that protected women and the poor, reflecting her own struggles. The court's resistance peaked as Coronation Day neared. A group of senators, led by John the Cappadocian and Anastasius, who had tried to sabotage her, rallied a faction to challenge Justinian's claim, arguing that Theodora's low birth disqualified her. They spread lurid tales of her performances, claiming she'd disgraced the empire. Theodora, undaunted, used her network of allies, Monophysite clergy, Hippodrome loyalists, and palace servants to counter their moves. She uncovered a plot by Anastasius to bribe officials into supporting a rival, Belisarius, a young general. Theodora confronted Anastasius in the palace, her voice sharp as a blade. "You weave lies, but my truth cuts deeper." She presented evidence of his bribes, forcing him to flee the city. Her past as an actress, once a mark of shame, became her greatest asset. The skills she honed in the Hippodrome, reading crowds, manipulating perceptions, allowed her to sway public opinion. When the blues and greens threatened another riot over tax increases, Theodora orchestrated a public address where Justinian promised reforms, her words shaping his speech to resonate with the masses. The crowd cheered, chanting "Theodora Augusta," a title not yet official, but already hers in their hearts. Her ability to bridge the elite and the commoners, learned from years of navigating society's fringes, made her indispensable to Justinian. He confided in her nightly, their lamplit discussions forging laws that protected women and the poor, reflecting her own struggles. The court's resistance peaked as Coronation Day neared. A group of senators, led by John the Cappadocian and Anastasius, who had tried to sabotage her, rallied a faction to challenge Justinian's claim, arguing that Theodora's low birth disqualified her. Justinian, furious, prepared to exile them, but Theodora intervened, her cunning sharper than his wrath. She invited the patriarch to a private meeting, flanked by Monophysite bishops who supported her.
With a blend of charm and veiled threats, she secured his blessing, promising church reforms in return. Her scandalous reputation, once a barrier, now gave her leverage. She knew the secrets of the powerful, gathered from her days in the shadows, and used them to silence dissent. On the day of the coronation, the Hagia Sophia glowed with candlelight, its mosaics shimmering as Justinian and Theodora processed through cheering crowds. She wore a purple robe, the color of emperors, her head held high, despite whispered sneers from the elite. As the patriarch placed the diadem on her head, naming her Augusta, Theodora's eyes met Justinian's, a silent vow of their shared triumph. Her past, far from a stain, had shaped their marriage into a partnership of equals. She had fought for this moment, turning every scandal into a stepping stone. Her performances taught her resilience, her abandonment by Heliopolis forged her independence, and her Monophysite ties gave her a voice in a divided empire. Their marriage reshaped the Byzantine world. Theodora's influence extended beyond the palace. She pushed for laws against trafficking, gave women property rights, and supported Monophysite refugees, earning her both love and hatred. Her past made her empathetic to the marginalized, while Justinian's vision relied on her pragmatism to temper his ideals. When a new crisis loomed, the Nika riots of 532 CE, where the Hippodrome factions nearly overthrew them, Theodora's courage saved the throne. As Justinian wavered, she stood firm and declared, "Purple makes a fine shroud," urging him to fight rather than flee. Her words, born from a life of defying odds, galvanized him, and their forces crushed the revolt, cementing their rule. Theodora's scandalous past, far from destroying her marriage, defined it. It gave her the grit to face a hostile court, the insight to navigate its politics, and the heart to champion the voiceless. Justinian, without her, might have faltered. Together, they built an empire that endured. Her origins as an actress, once a mark of shame, became the foundation of her power, proving that a woman from the dust could rise to wear a crown. Constantinople, once scandalized, now bowed to its Augusta, her legacy etched in the empire's heart. If you've been gripped by Theodora's rise from scandal to sovereignty, hit that like button, subscribe, and comment below, what did you think of her journey? Your support keeps these epic tales alive. Until the next story, farewell.